"You don't live here anymore." That's what a total stranger said to me the moment I walked into my own cabin on a Saturday afternoon, me hands still full of groceries, brain on autopilot, thinking I'd finally get a quiet weekend by the lake. But there she was, sitting at my dining table with 15 other people, like they were holding a board meeting in my grandfather's house. This perfectly put-together blonde woman in a business suit stared at me with that flat, unbothered look you see on lawyers and sharks, and announced cool as you please that I was no longer authorized to be on the property. I actually laughed, thinking it had to be a prank or a misunderstanding, right? But she just looked me dead in the eye, pulled out her phone and said, "I was hoping we could do this the easy way." Next thing I know, she's calling 911, shrieking that a dangerous intruder has crashed their community meeting. That's when it hit me, his was no mistake. I was in a nightmare and I didn't even know how I got there. You ever walk into a situation so bizarre it makes you question reality? Yeah, that was me right there in my own home. But let me back up a sec, because you've got to know how this all started if you want to understand just how far off the rails it went. 3 months earlier, my grandfather passed away and left me his lakeside cabina place I'd loved since I was a kid. I thought inheriting that cabin was the one good thing to come out of losing him. I was already picturing lazy mornings on the dock, fishing, breathing that fresh pine air, maybe even healing up from all the stress of my freelance web gigs back in the city. But then I found a stack of unopened mail piled up by the front door, and that was the end of my lakeside dreams. $12,000 in back taxes, penalties climbing higher every week, and a foreclosure notice from the county with a bright red deadline: 90 days, or say goodbye to everything my family built. 12 grand might not sound like much, but when your biggest paycheck comes from a pizza joint that sometimes pays in gift cards, it might as well be 12 million. I tried everything: loans, relatives, even thought about selling plasma for quick cash. Rejection, hang-ups, more rejection. Nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe I was the last Monroe who'd ever call this place home. That's when Amanda Thompson showed up at my door, looking like a corporate savior with her designer haircut, shiny briefcase, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She introduced herself as the new president of the Pine Ridge Community Homeowners Association. Now, I'd been coming to this cabin since I was 7. There was never an HOA. My grandfather would have burned the bylaws before letting strangers tell him how to mow his grass. But Amanda had receipts, county letterhead, signatures, official stamps, and meeting minutes. She said the Pine Ridge HOA was part of a new federal mental health initiative. My cabin, according to her papers, had been voted the official community wellness center, tax-exempt. Supposedly, she laid out forms, glossy brochures, testimonials from neighbors I'd never even met. She had photos of smiling people in my front yard, all gathered for some veteran wellness event. None of them looked familiar. But here's where she got started talking about property tax exemptions for wellness centers. She had my grandfather's signature on all the paperwork. I looked at it for a long time. I wanted to believe it was real. Maybe the arthritis made his handwriting weird. Maybe I just didn't remember his signature right. Amanda made it all sound so simple. Let them use the place a few weekends a month. Therapists would handle everything, insurance and federal grants would pay for it, and I'd get to keep my property debt-free. I ignored every red flag: her smile, her pitch-perfect explanations, the way she always had an answer ready before I even asked the question. She pulled out a membership agreement with my forged signature, shrugged it off as a normal part of estate paperwork. "Lawyers sign things all the time for heirs," she said. "Happens every day." She made forgery sound like a minor typo. I let myself get reeled in. The promise of wiping away 12 grand in taxes was too much to turn down. Amanda packed up her files, handed me a business card, and asked me to sign a property access agreement so the wellness weekends could start as soon as possible. But before she left, she pulled out her phone and said, "Let me call my son. He'll be thrilled to finally meet you again." The way she said "again" made my skin crawl. 10 minutes later, there's a heavy knock at the door. In walks Sean Thompson, my old college roommate. I hadn't seen him in 2 years, not since I reported him for cheating and got him expelled. He looked rougher, bitter, but underneath it all, I could see that same smirk he used to have when he stole my food from the dorm fridge. Amanda introduced him with this twisted pride of me, sanctimonious integrity, had ruined his career, and now, here they were, planning my downfall. Sean pulled out a folder photos of me running errands, bank statements, copies of my social posts like some kind of true crime documentary. They'd been watching me for months, documenting everything. Amanda flipped open another folder, dozens of documents, all with perfect forgeries of my signature. HOA agreements, tax forms, authorizations. Amazing what you can do with the right samples, she said, almost like she was bragging about Sean's artistic talent. But what really hit me in the gut was when Amanda pulled out Sean's academic records, bragged about how he could have worked at Google or Tesla if I hadn't ruined everything by reporting him. The rage and grief in her voice was real, twisted up with years of resentment. To her, I was the villain. She made her offer: either I let the wellness center run out of my cabin, keep my home, and get a monthly payout, or fight them in court and lose everything. She'd already filed code violations with the county, $5,000 fines, escalating every week. The paperwork was airtight, the trap perfect. She knew I was broke, that I couldn't afford a legal battle, and that I'd do anything to save the only thing left of my grandfather. A few days later, the fines started rolling in. Certified letters from the county, accusations of unauthorized commercial activity, grass too tall, no ADA-compliant signage. I got hit with violations for running my freelance web business from the cabin. Amanda filed complaints with the state, photos of my laptop on the kitchen table, screenshots of my website. The state board sent an investigator who confirmed I needed a commercial license. The penalties could wipe me out. I called the county, desperate to figure out if the wellness center exemption was real. The clerk had never heard of it, and when I mentioned Amanda's name, she told me there were ongoing investigations into fake exemptions and forged signatures. That's when the bottom dropped out. Amanda's promises were a lie. She'd been building a fraud case against me the whole time, making sure every move I made looked like a crime. Meanwhile, she was live-streaming these fake therapy retreats every weekend, professional cameras, actors playing veterans and trauma survivors, fundraising, billing insurance for services she never provided. She built a social following, playing the martyr, while I was drowning under fines and legal threats. I felt isolated, powerless, like I was trapped in someone else's nightmare. But then, a twist-me new neighbor, Mrs. Clark, showed up. 78, sharp as a tack, Korean War survivor. She'd been watching Amanda's circus through a telephoto lens and taking notes. Turns out, Mrs. Clark had a long memory for con artists and no patience for bullies. She documented everything: fake therapists, paid actors, multiple wellness centers, run out of absentee owners' properties. She even recognized some of Amanda's supposed patients from local car commercials. Mrs. Clark had a plan. Keep gathering evidence, wait for Amanda to get sloppy. She'd already spotted holes in the documentation: conflicting dates, mismatched signatures, made-up billing. And her granddaughter, Jenny? Federal agent, white-collar crime unit. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. It escalated quick. Amanda started sending people in fake inspector uniforms to issue new violations. Mrs. Clark's cameras caught the whole thing. She called the sheriff, who showed up and arrested the inspector on the spot. Amanda panicked, started live streaming that I was framing her and harassing veterans. She made the mistake of revealing specific insurance details on camera, details that matched up with fraud reports the feds were already investigating. Amanda doubled down, threatening me and my family, mentioning my sister Sarah by name, claiming she had information that could ruin Sarah's career. That's when Sarah showed up at the cabin and dropped her own bombshell. She wasn't just my sister. She was Special Agent Sarah Martinez, Insurance Fraud Division, and Amanda Thompson had been under federal surveillance for months. Turns out, Amanda wasn't after me for Sean's college expulsion. She was targeting the families of federal investigators. My sister's job put a target on my back. Amanda had access to classified files. She knew everything about me, about Sarah, about every agent involved in the investigation. She was running a criminal enterprise across 4 states, exploiting wellness programs meant for veterans, raking in millions in fraudulent claims. Sarah explained just how bad things could get, because I'd signed some of Amanda's documents even under duress. Even as a victim, I could be facing charges myself. Mrs. Clark's evidence, all those hours of surveillance footage, became my lifeline. Amanda made her next move. She filed a complaint with the Inspector General, accusing Sarah of corruption, trying to get her suspended from the case. The IG had to investigate, giving Amanda more time to cover her tracks. But Amanda slipped up, revealing knowledge of federal procedures that only someone with access to classified info could know. That became the proof the feds needed to bring the hammer down. But Amanda wasn't done. Her paranoia pushed her over the edge. She went live, broadcasting her breakdown to tens of thousands, ranting about conspiracies, showing stolen federal files, accusing me of running a criminal operation with Sarah. Her followers watched in horror as she melted down in real time, spilling every secret she'd been hiding. Sean showed up on camera trying to stop her. He ended up walking off, shattered by the realization that his own mother was unhinged, dangerous, and past saving. The next morning, Mrs. Clark's cameras caught Amanda and Sean staging a fake crime scene at my property, planting evidence, faking surveillance footage, the whole deal. Sean finally snapped. He'd been working with the feds, wearing a wire, feeding them everything. Amanda caught him, screamed betrayal, and smashed the recording equipment. But the backups were already in FBI hands. Mrs. Clark called the sheriff, and within minutes, law enforcement swarmed the property. Amanda was arrested on camera ranting about persecution as federal agents cuffed her. Her arrest became the most watched meltdown in social media history. Over 50,000 people tuned in, watching her empire of lies collapse. Sean's testimony spared him prison time. He got probation and community service, working with real veterans organizations trying to atone. Amanda's crimes stretched deep: fraud, identity theft, theft of classified files, conspiracy, obstruction, you name it. Her trial was a circus, her sentencing even more dramatic. 27 years, no parole. The judge called her crimes an assault on the fabric of community trust and the dignity of those she claimed to help. Mrs. Clark became a local legend. Her evidence and grit brought down a criminal ring the feds couldn't touch alone. My property was restored, the community rallied, and I hosted the first real veterans retreat with Mrs. Clark that fall. The hashtag about Amanda's arrest trended for weeks. Her followers abandoned her in droves, angry at being used. Sarah and I rebuilt our bond. Her agency rewrote protocols to protect families of investigators. The county cracked down on fake nonprofits. I kept a few of Mrs. Clark's cameras, just in case. In the end, Amanda's years of scheming only brought her own world down. My family survived. I got to keep the cabin and learned the hard way that sometimes the greatest threats don't come from strangers, but from the people who convince themselves their ends justify any means. Have you ever watched someone lose everything on a live stream and realize justice has a weird way of showing up at the perfect moment? Drop your wildest HOA, scam, or neighborhood horror stories in the comments. Tell me, what would you have done in my place? Where's the line between self-preservation and fighting back for the sake of others? Let's hear your take on justice, revenge, and how far is too far when your home and family are on the line.